Alright, so this is a bonus video that I wanted to make in this section of the Key of Spiritual Connection, simply because there's certain concepts that I spoke about, which is kind of like assumed knowledge, which you have to really be able to get to grips with and understand in order to fully, take action and implement what has been described and what has been taught in this module. So the thing about the two things I want to teach about today is one, the levels of energy, which I referred to earlier on in the program, and also I want to refer to and teach the natural laws of the universe. So the first thing is with the levels of energy, because this is something that might seem like it's quite, woo-woo, airy-fairy, because you can't necessarily see energy, but understand that it is the truth and reality, because even when you look at science is, they study things like energy. You think about the equation E equals mc squared. Well, that is a equation about energy, right? It's energy equals mass times E equals mc squared, mass times by consciousness light squared. So when you look at the scientific side of this, then you can see that there is actually a science behind energy. And when we look at the levels of energy, there are different machines and technology that can be used to figure out where a person is or where an entity is on the energy spectrum. And so there's certain machines that can be used where you can figure out what is the frequency of the vibration of a certain energetic field of a person or of a certain physical thing. And these energy levels are going from the bottom all the way up to the top, where the two are divided between negative and positive. So at the negative levels of energy, these are what we describe as emotional places that a person can be at, because remember, emotion is just simply energy in motion. So when the energy goes into motion at that certain frequency of vibration, then we can see at the lowest levels it operating at a level of, for example, fear, grief, apathy, blame, victimhood, things like this. So these are like the lowest levels of energy, and then it might ascend a little bit more to anger, frustration, and then further on to some of the higher levels of energy, which become a little bit more positive, where we now have happiness, we now have joy, we now have gratitude as like the highest level that a person can get to, and enlightenment and things like that. And so when you understand the levels of energy, you understand that with where you want to be in your God life, it wants to be at the highest levels of energy that you tap into. Because if you think about what it feels like to experience that reality, where it's not just surface level in terms of you have money and time, but you also have relationships, you also have love and family, and you're in your purpose, you're doing the things that you spiritually know that you're supposed to be doing here on this earth, then how's it going to make you feel? How is it going to make you feel being able to have the opportunity to experience that type of lifestyle? So that's the thing about the levels of energy, is that you have to be able to experience that first, because as much as you can manifest an idea and a thought, before something actually comes into physical manifestation, it has to also be manifested as a feeling, right? As an emotion. And so once you've manifested it as an emotion, now it can be experienced in the 3D reality and becoming manifest through that. So that's why it's so important to understand the levels of energy, where you're at right now within certain areas, because you might be at a higher level of energy when it comes to thinking about things like your fitness, but you might be at a low level when it comes to your relationships. You might be at a high level when it comes to your business, low level when it comes to your study, whatever it is. So figure out, what are the levels of energy that I'm at right now? Who am I surrounded with, and what levels of energy are they radiating at as well? Because you become the 5 people you surround yourself with. So if you're surrounded by people who are energetically deprived, and they're low, unconscious of the fact that they even have a low level of energy, don't even know what the levels of energy are, then chances are that that's going to have an impact on you as well. And your energy, like I said, is 99% of the reason as to why you get the results that you have. So you want to make sure that the energy is set correctly. It's really important. So that's the levels of energy. The second thing I wanted to go through was the natural laws of the universe, because there are 12 natural laws of the universe, and you can look this up on Google you can literally see what these laws are. So I'm going to go through each one of these really quickly and help you to understand how you can actually implement these laws so that it's going to have a beneficial impact on your life. So the first law of the universe is we have the law of divine oneness, right? The law of divine oneness, it simply means everything in this world is connected. So as I was saying earlier on about how when we look at the body, we see that the cells are all working together and it's all connected in one. And that's simply because of the perspective that we have as the whole living within a greater universe. So the same thing happens when it comes to the universe itself, is that we are all connected and we are constantly sending signals out to each other. We don't even realize it. It's kind of like if you've ever had that experience where, you know, you're thinking about somebody and then as you're thinking about them, they pick up the phone and they actually call you. Now that's simply because there is a signal that's going on where you're both on that same frequency, and you then feel like there's a need to call each other. Or when sometimes you randomly bump into a person, the reason why is because you're connected. And you don't even realize how you're connected, because this is something that's going on through beyond your physical perception, that you can see through your sensory 5 senses. In your touch, your sight, your way that you touch and smell and things like that. So now you're operating through a 6th sense when you start to have those synchronistic experiences. So that's the law of divine oneness. Then we have the law of vibration. And so the way that the law of vibration works is that this is the precursor to the law of attraction that a lot of people know about, which is the 3rd law. But the law of attraction is a secondary law to the law of vibration. And what I would actually go further to say is that the law of vibration is a secondary law to what we call the law of Gaia. Because like I said first, when you're attempting to make that quantum leap, you can't just make the quantum leap from a standing start. If you try to leap from a standing start, you can only go so far. If you really want to fucking, take a leap of faith, you have to have a running start, and then from there you can jump to the other side, right? You can take that leap of faith. But it's not going to work if you're just there stood still. So when it comes to the secondary law of vibration, the primary law is what we call the law of Gaia. And what the law of Gaia means is probably the one that nobody teaches you, is this is the law of get off your freaking ass, right? So the more technical term is the law of action, but we call it get off your ass because if you're lazy, you're never going to be able to get that running start, and then from there vibrate at a higher level. And then as you're vibrating at a higher level, you attract experiences, people, the right things into your life that will allow you to really take that quantum leap. So that's what it's about. Is the law of action requires, manifestation requires aligned action. That's what that requires. So it's important to have that. So the law after this is where we have the law of cause and effect. And so the law of cause and effect is where every single thing that happens in your life happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. Nothing is a coincidence, because a coincidence is just simply when things coincide together, right? And the reason that they coincide is because they were vibrating at the same frequency. So when you think about the law of cause and effect, right, you have to understand that if you want to create certain things as outcomes, then you have to know what is the cause of that particular outcome. What can cause me to have that effect? So that's where you want to be at, is that you want to be, instead of looking at the symptom, looking more so at the cause of the situation. And that's how not only can you prevent certain things from happening, but also you can bring into existence the things that you truly want. Law of cause and effect is important. Every action has a consequence. The next one that we have is the law of compensation, where we are actually rewarded for that right action. So when you think about the how we go from the law of Gaia to the law of vibration to the law of attraction, the final one that we go to is the law of compensation. So the law of cause and effect is kind of like the one that encompasses all of them, because you see that there's a cause in every effect of each law. But then the law of compensation is where that's the one where you start to get rewarded for the right action. And so the other ones in between is kind of like the actual scientific processes that's occurring, in how a person just seems to be getting lucky all the time, but it's not. It's just that they're operating through new laws and they're vibrating at a higher level, attracting things which are going to help them get towards their goals quicker. And then they get rewarded and compensated eventually. But the reward comes last. Understand that. Everyone wants the reward straight away. They want that immediate gratification, but that's false. It is through delayed gratification that you're going to be able to experience the highest rewards, which are most true for the work that you put in, because it is delayed. So that's the law of compensation, where we're rewarded for the right action. Then there is the law of perpetual transmutation, where it's energy is always moving, right? So energy is always moving, it's always changing, it's constantly in motion and vibration. So the law of perpetual transmutation of energy is where things are just changing form constantly. It's like, as human beings, you know, we every 7 years we change into a different entity. We're never staying in the same form. They say that the previous version of yourself dies, and then there's like a completely new person that emerges every 7 years. So that's like the law of transmutational energy taking place. Then there is the law of relativity, where everything is relative. So you might be able to say, for one person, for example, who you see has a lot of money, well, the fact that they have a lot of money is just in comparison and relative to a person that doesn't have the amount that they have. But if you were to compare the lot of money, let's say it was $1 million, to somebody who has $1 billion, then the million no longer seems like a lot of money. Imagine if everybody had $1 million. $1 billion would no longer seem like it's a lot. So that's the law of relativity, where it doesn't just work in a sense of money, but works in, you know, every area of your life, all the tenets of the God life, things like that. So you have the law of relativity. Then there's the law of polarity, right? So I spoke about that before, where every entity in this world has an equal and opposite. So if we have the God life, we have the devil life. If we have the devil, we have God. If we have good, we have bad. If we have you know, masculine, we have feminine, which actually takes us into another one of the laws, which is the law of gender. And so if we know that there is a masculine and a feminine energy always within us, then we have to understand that with law, manifestation requires that there is a balance of energies between us. And once we have that balance of energies where we are acting as well as being on the vibration and feeling how we're supposed to be feeling, then we can attract certain things into our life, experiences that help us to get those rewards. So that has to happen through the balance of both masculine and feminine. You can't be leaning towards one side or the other. And I would highly recommend that you get somebody else as an outside perspective to check in with you and be like, how can I see, you know, how balanced I am right now? Where am I? Am I leaning towards my feminine? Am I in my masculine? What do you think? What's your second opinion? And they'll tell you straight, because they're like, look, dude, you're not taking any action for like 5 years. You're in your feminine. You're just learning all the time. Or they're like, look, you've all you've been doing is reading books. You've not taken any action. And the reverse as well, where somebody's just taking action, they're not reading anything. So you want to be balanced in the middle, and then from there you can act and manifest. The law of rhythm, this is another law. So that's a law where nothing is permanent in this life. Everything is changing all the time. That's a constant. So if you try to avoid change, what you're essentially doing is you are struggling and working really hard against the current instead of swimming with the waves, because change is always going to come. So if you align yourself with change and you actually feel comfortable in the change, then from there you're going to be much more receptive towards the benefits that will happen from you being able to be on the side of change as opposed to be on the opposite side. So that's the law of rhythm. And then the final law is the law of gender. And the way the law of gender works, I spoke about this already. So yeah, the law of gender is the one where you have the balance between the two to manifest. And that's pretty much all the 12 laws. So I almost went through that one again. But yeah, I hope this video has been really helpful in helping you understand not only the levels of energy, but the 12 laws, natural laws of the universe. If you want to learn a little bit more about the levels of energy, because there's so much to learn about that, this is just like a tiny little introduction. And I learned a lot of this from reading a book actually by a guy called Frederick Dodson. He gave a very scientific approach. It's all numbers based. It's no woo-woo. It's just very it just makes sense logically. And the book is called The Levels of Energy. So I'll drop a link underneath this video so that you guys can get access to that book and you know where to look for it. And then the other one that I would recommend for you to take a look at is to understand the 7 Hermetic principles, and also to understand the natural laws of the universe, is to start studying what we call the Kybalion. So these are ancient principles that have been taught and kind of lost as we've moved from being a spiritual collective to more so looking into the science. That's kind of how the age has evolved, when really we want to have both, right? We want to have the science that matches the spiritual, bringing them together, because through that we have the aligned manifestation, like I spoke about with the law of gender. So I would recommend looking at the Kybalion. Again, I'll drop it in the link below this video. You can check it out, and then from there do some extra study. Another thing that I would recommend is, if you really want to ascend in terms of your levels of energy, I would highly recommend looking into a guy called Joe Dispenza. He brings science to the spiritual. Another guy is called Billy Carson, and I would definitely just go through a lot of Billy Carson's videos on manifestation, on spirituality. He just is just next level in terms of what he can teach you. But in terms of Joe Dispenza, I will drop a link beneath this to a meditation that he does, which I believe is the best meditation that you can find on the internet. It's until somebody can come with me and be like, yeah, it's this one better, then I believe that is the best one, because I've experienced so many, and that one, although it's a little bit of a longer one, it just makes you feel afterwards yeah, it's powerful. That's all I can say. It's just powerful. You're completely centered on belief, and you can see where it's just, yeah. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I would recommend watching the beginning of the video so you understand the science behind the meditation, and then watch the rest of it and experience meditation yourself in doing that meditation. But yeah, I'll drop those in beneath this video. You can check that all out. And yeah, this has just been a little bit of a bonus. And for those things, you can be implementing on a daily basis, the meditation, for example, and the exercises as well. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed this bonus, and we'll be seeing you on some of the next videos.